part of her teaching and research. This I found very, very interesting to mix research and pedagogy and didactics. Yes, yes. For example, students in her community service course create living history scrapbooks for Franco-American elders in Lowell. Susan's doctoral dissertation, supported by Fulbright grant, involved the ethnographic fieldwork in Seraikela, in India, and focused on the political and artistic transformation of Chhau dance. And it's about this that she is talking here. The title of the paper is from Chaitre, Parve to YouTube. I hope to pronounce quite better, but well. Hinduism, transnationalism, and Seraikela Chhau dance. I think, yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I think you'll see that this topic connects a lot with what's already been said in many of your presentations. Okay, so in a recent essay titled Religion on the Move, Peggy Levitt proposes what she calls a transnational optic. In her words, a transnational optic helps identify the actors, ideas, and technologies that are the carriers of religion. It calls our attention to the real and imagined past and present geographies through which religion travels and the pathways and networks that guide the elements circulating within them. Finally, it produces a clearer picture of how and why religious assemblages are created at these sites of encounter. Using this model, if we then look closely at two time-honored carriers of religion, music and dance, we soon see another transnational process at work: the professionalization of artistic performances and separation from the religious base, as much music and dance previously performed in local religious contexts may also be performed on the global stage through tours, television, radio, and the internet. In addition, whether or not a particular form of religious dance or music, once circulated, becomes relocalized in a diasporic community may depend on the presence of a critical mass of migrants from the same regional religious tradition, and thus is as much a geopolitical process as a religious one. As noted by Diana Eck, speaking of the Hindu diaspora in particular, Hindu communities within India itself are already dispersed, creating a rich variety of regional and sectarian traditions that's not so easily replicated abroad. So keeping this complexity in mind and pulling together these three threads, religious, artistic, and geopolitical, my intent in this paper is to explore the transnationalization of religion through the trajectory of a regional Indian masked dance, Seraikela Chhau, which was traditionally associated with the Hindu spring festival, Chhau Parve. In doing so, I will explore the following three questions. First, at what point did Seraikela Chhau become a transnational dance form? 2, when and why did Chhau's primary association with a local religious tradition begin to change? And 3, how have the transportation and communication technologies of the late 20th and early 21st century affect the meaning of Chhau and its connection with religion? So Seraikela Chhau emanates from Seraikela, which is currently a small town and subdivision in the district of Jharkhand, just north of Orissa. So the Jharkhand region is there in yellow. It's about a 6-hour train trip from Kolkata, the closest major city. This is a hilly region full of rivers and streams. The town itself sits alongside of this river, which is the Karkai River. And while the town's population is mostly comprised of Oriya Hindus, Christian and Muslim minorities are also present. And the surrounding area in particular hosts a very large population of Adivasis, the indigenous peoples of India, including Ho, Santal, and Mundas. So before Indian independence in 1947, Seraikela was the capital of an Indian princely state. There's a slide of the palace. Ruled by succeeding generations of the Singdeo family. As part of the annual spring festival known as Chaitre Parve, which literally means spring festival, Chhau dance performances are preceded by several days of rituals, wherein a group of devotees, referred to as bhaktas, undergoes certain ritual penances, such as fasting and getting up very early in the morning, bathing by the river. And this is a series of rituals that's considered very crucial to happen before the dance can occur. The rituals themselves are also dedicated to the Hindu god Ardhanarishwara, which symbolizes the union of Shiva and Shakti. And the Chhau dance itself is preceded by an instrumental invocation symbolizing this union of Shiva Shakti called Jatragad. And just to give you a sense of what the musicians look like and their drums, they have several types of drums. The sort of kettle-type drum called a nagara, doles, and the wind instrument on the mat there is a mohuri, which is a oboe-like double reed instrument. Not pictured here is the bansuri, the bamboo flute, that's also very important, and also the harmonium, which you'll hear later when I play some music. So the main themes of the dance itself are eclectic, ranging from sword and shield exercises done by the Raja's militia traditionally, to scenes of daily life. This is a photo of a dance called the boatman and his wife. To mimicry of animals and insects. This is actually the butterfly dance. To stories of Hindu gods and goddesses, such as Chandrabhaga. This is the story of the sun god Surya, who chases the maiden Chandrabhaga into the ocean, actually, to her death. And that's one of the more dances that's actually usually performed at a Chhau festival. So I have a brief clip on YouTube of the dance itself, but I think I'm going to wait till the end of my talk to show that to you, just so that I don't disturb the way the slides are coming here. So, okay. Now, what's interesting is that, well, actually, before I tell you this part of it, let me just give you a quote here. So, connecting with its religious base as part of the Spring Festival, one of the elder explained the dance's origin to me as follows. Talas, which are the rhythmic basis of Chhau dance and used in most of Indian music actually, are the creation of God. When God created this world, he created all the birds, beasts, and humans. Then Brahma and Vishnu and Maheshwar are thinking, we already created this world, we have to make some entertainment. To make their lives continue, we need some entertainment. So they created 4 syllables, ta, ti, to, di. From the first ta started denta, denta, denta. From this, the Chhau dance first started. Okay. So, with regard to how the dance came to be practiced in Seraikela, local elders emphasize that the area of present-day Singhbum, which I showed you earlier in the map, was previously part of the Kalinga Empire, which this is a map which shows the Kalinga Empire area in India, and then the trade routes, which were very extensive. And the Kalinga Empire was conquered by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. At that time, Singhbum became linked with a vast overseas trade network extending to Java, Sumatra, Bali, and Borneo. Both Hinduism and Buddhism spread along these same pathways. In this way, it's believed that traders learned the art of Chhau in Indonesia, including how to make masks, and brought this back to the Seraikela area. Indeed, similarities exist between the Seraikela masks and those used in Indonesian dance theater, such as Wayang Tompeng, which also draws many of its themes from Hindu sacred narratives and is also often performed in a court context. So while the early history of Chhau is difficult to verify, this associating with ancient trade routes suggests that transnationalism, with regard to the mutual sharing and spread across borders of religious icons and sacred narratives through the medium of music and dance, is not new to Chhau. but rather may have been very instrumental from the start. In other words, that most likely it was a transnational art form from the very beginning. In contrast, developments during the mid-20th century are clearly documented and remembered by local elders. During the 1930s, substantial changes were introduced to Chhau when the Seraikela Raja's younger brother, Vijay Pratap Singh Deo, became the principal choreographer, and the Raja's own sons began to dance. To recreate Chhau, he was inspired by theater productions he saw while a student in Calcutta. And these included a wide variety of performances, including Western ballet and other dances drawn from diverse regions of India, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Singh Deo also consulted with Uday Shankar, one of the leading choreographers in India at the time, with regard to how to make Chhau more appealing for foreigners to watch. And with this expanded repertoire, the Seraikela Chhau dancers went on tour in Europe in 1938, the very first of India's dance forms to have a European tour. The dance was also brought into the arena of Indian nationalist politics, performing for both Gandhi and Nehru, as Chhau became an attractive means by which to lobby for the future position of Seraikela state, which was actually an independent princely state at the time. So once Chhau went on tour abroad, it became increasingly separated from the ritual context of Chhau Parve. In the words of the 1938 tour program, it was now performed as an art rather than as an immemorial ritual. However, in Seraikela, Chhau continued to be performed in tandem with the Chhau Parve rituals. Thus, in this case, performances abroad stimulated a secularization and professionalization of the dance through the creation of tour groups, rather than a relocalization of the dance's of its religious base. This may be strongly connected to the dance's performance largely for foreigners rather than immigrant Hindu communities. As a result of tours abroad, the Chhau dancers and musicians began to develop a rich network of transnational connections without ever being firmly based in a localized immigrant community. During the late 20th century, aided greatly by improved transportation and communication systems, these transnational connections brought foreigners to Seraikela just as they brought dance troupes abroad. So when I arrived in Seraikela in the mid-1980s to begin my ethnographic fieldwork, I came in the midst of several other scholars and dancers. A dancer from Paris and a scholar from Denmark were both there at the same time. As such, we were all actively involved in artistic exchange. I studied the Chhau dance music on my clarinet, and the dancer from Paris performed modern dance on the same stage as the Chhau dancers. The Chhau dancers themselves had recently returned from a Japanese tour sponsored by the Japan Foundation, and were about to perform at the Festival of India in France. So over the course of my fieldwork, I also went back and forth several times between Boston and Seraikela. I think it's important to realize that as researchers, we're also part of this whole transnational aspect of music and dance. And on more than one occasion, I gave lectures about Chhau to the Orissa Society of New England, which is a voluntary ethnic organization for Indian immigrants from the state of Orissa, which borders Jharkhand to the south, and is ethnically akin to the Seraikela town residents and royal family. A regional association centered just on the Oriya community of Jharkhand doesn't exist. Immigrants from that area are dispersed all over the US, and it would be unlikely to find enough in any one location to form an association. So my lectures about Chhau were always greeted with much interest, but viewed as being about a regional folk dance, and not really as being emblematic of mainstream Oriya culture, or of religious traditions in particular. This is also because the festival connected with Chhau, Chhau Parve, is more exuberantly celebrated in the Jharkhand area and is not really considered a major holiday by the majority of Oriyas. As part of my fieldwork in Seraikela, in addition to learning to play the Chhau dance music and participating in the local round of Hindu festivals and rituals, I also observed performances of Chhau in other locations, apart from the festival, for example, at regional dance festivals and at the trade fair in Delhi. Yet, seeing Chhau performances outside of Seraikela was a very different experience from seeing it performed during the Spring Festival. The full social context for Chhau really only exists in Seraikela and the surrounding area. Outside of this area, even in India, a verbal commentary must be given, and the dance tends to be performed more as an artistic or educational event. While the explanations help deal a bit with the problem of context collapse, so typical of 21st century communication, they do not really recreate the lived aspect of what it feels like to experience Chhau performed in Seraikela during the Spring Festival. In the last decade, these lecture performances have expanded to YouTube, easily accessible through the internet, such as this one of a performance in Bangalore. Thus, performing Chhau outside of Seraikela alters the dance's meaning from being clearly understood by all who watch and closely integrated with the religious festival to requiring an expert, informed explanation of both the local context and the religious symbolism. In Seraikela, residents are proud to say that even young children can tell if a dance is performed correctly or not. Understanding the stories, songs, and religious context of the images is a given. Furthermore, even for the dancers themselves, dancing outside of the local context alters the experience and quality of the performance. As one of the elder dancers explained to me in this story, one of our dancers was taken by the zamindar, meaning an aristocratic landowner, at Kasipur. There was a good musician there, and he said that you teach Chhau dance here. So there he taught them. After 1 year, the zamindar said, I want to see how they've progressed. They danced before that zamindar, and he asked whether that dance is equal to the Chhau dance here. The dancer said, no, not yet. So he said, you please teach for another year. So he taught them for 7 years, and again he saw the dance. And he asked them again if it had come to the standard of Seraikela dance, and he said, no, not yet. Then he said, when will it come? He said, it will never come. Why? During Chaitre, Parve, the air, water, everything dances. How can I get that thing here? That atmosphere won't be here. How can I teach them? So in this way, we see that the context provided by specific places does matter. Although it may be obvious, it bears emphasis that Seraikela Chhau performed on the stage or lecture hall in Delhi or Tokyo or Boston or watched on YouTube is not the same experience, nor carry the same meaning for either dancers or audience as it does when performed in Seraikela during the Hindu Spring Festival. Thus, the transnationalization of religion through music and dance is not an automatic or uniform process, but implies a transformation of sorts. A transformation whose particular outcome is dependent on other religious, artistic, and geopolitical factors, such as whether the particular form of music or dance is perceived by the diasporic community as central to the creation of the religious identity, and the existence of a critical mass of migrants from the same regional religious background, or the degree to which the dance itself may have verged towards an artistic performance on its own right, apart from its religious roots. For Seraikela Chhau in the 21st century, its role as a transnational carrier of Hindu icons, narratives, and practices is to a large degree a byproduct of its promotion on the international dance scene, and the musicians and dancers as its agents, more like migrant workers who come and go, engaging on an itinerant basis in the foreign and diasporic communities and audiences they encounter. Participating in this transnational world, the form may be the same, but the spirit is different. The dance may be performed, but the full contextual meaning is lost. The ancient traders during the Kalinga Empire, when they navigated their boats to Java and Bali, must have experienced a similar lack of synchrony, bringing their religion and art forms abroad and returning back home. But over time, a recreation and regrounding of both religion and art took place. Although the transportation and communication systems of the 21st century are vastly different from the 3rd century BC, the lesson is the same. It is through reconciling these paradoxes of time, space, and meaning that religious and artistic performances are allowed to transform into new contexts, sometimes grounded, sometimes circulating, and the vitality of transnational religious communities is created and maintained. Okay, thank you. For some reason it's not.
Because we have time,
right.
we can
I'm not sure, it's not, I had loaded it onto YouTube, but it's not coming up on the
it's coming
screen for
with-
some reason.
Okay, there is
Yeah,
not a
I'm sorry about
connection.
that, it's not,
There is no connection.
it's
Okay,
not
okay.
showing on the, yeah.
I asked to.
So
it
anyone
wasn't-
who's interested, I could send you a link to actually see the dance.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation, for the, it's a big topic, of course, the losing of the context during the spectacularization of the, we can say, spectacularization, in English also, sorry, during the process of spectacularization. And in this case, we have, it's interesting also the reconstruction of the history that you do, that in order to also show how this history of tour started in the 40s, so yes, and 30s. So it's a long history, and I don't know if there are some questions now. You go. Hi.
Okay, thank you for the paper. I just, maybe I didn't well understood, but I have a question about the diaspora. In which context such kind of dance is performed, and for whom? And what are, you say that, okay, there are some transformations and the form is the same, but the content is different. I quote yourself.
Let me clarify that a bit. When I was talking about the diaspora, I was talking about mostly the community I'm most familiar with, which is the Hindu diaspora in the United States. And in that context, this dance really isn't really performed in a religious context. It's performed usually as parts of lecture demonstrations at universities, also sometimes at community organizations. All of the local community organizations at times have cultural festivals. So they might invite a Chhau dance troupe to perform if they're touring, but basically the dance itself, the repertoire has not really transformed much since the 1930s when it was remodeled by the son of the Raja. I don't know if that answers my.
So it's a kind of secularization of the repertoire.
Yes, I would say very much so. I thought in some senses that this example in a way shows a reason why a dance form that was previously very much part of a religious tradition through a transnationalization actually loses that connection in a meaningful way.
And the same on YouTube?
Yes.
I mean, it is
well,
secularized or both?
I mean, loses the lived context of it, but retains this idea of a sort of expert explanation. If you listen to the link on YouTube, you'll find that basically the religious context is given through explanation by a narrator. However, the actual context in terms of a lived experience is such as we saw so many examples of today, with people both participating in song and dance and participating in worship at the same time. That doesn't happen outside of this one local area. So.
Other question?
Thank you. I really enjoyed the paper. I think I responded to the same material as Ugo, actually. And let me know if I've misunderstood this. But are you in any way suggesting that religious music and dance forms are more stable in the homeland than they are in the diaspora?
I think that's a very, very thought-provoking question. I would say definitely for this form, that's the case, because it hasn't undergone a religious transformation and sort of regrounding, which is what you saw, in other traditions we've looked at in this conference. For Chhau, that didn't happen. And what I was trying to argue is I think one of the reasons it didn't happen was because this was a very a regional tradition which was considered somewhat remote. So that even the larger Hindu communities, for example, in the Boston area that I'm familiar with, they wouldn't consider this really part of their tradition in a religious sense. although they might enjoy it in terms of its artistic merit.
Okay, so you're just talking about a particular tradition because, I mean, there's thousands of examples
Right.
where the music and dance are actually more stable in diaspora than the homeland. So the people who feel that they own the music and are at the source are changing stuff
Right.
all of the time, whereas the people who are learning or preserving tradition are very reluctant to change anything.
Right.
So it's evidently not the case with this particular tradition, at least in the area you've worked in.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, it hasn't really been taken up by a diaspora community.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay. Many thanks to Mrs.